All right, let's dive into something pretty interesting today. We're going to be looking at The Game by Neil Strauss. It's all about, well, seduction techniques, really. We're talking about the techniques that some pretty smooth operators use out there.
You know, what's fascinating about this is that Strauss himself, he wasn't some kind of natural, Casanova. He was a journalist, actually, struggling with dating. And he got inspired by a friend of his, a guy named Dustin, who just seemed to attract women, effortlessly.
Wow, talk about frustrating, right?
Yeah.
So Strauss, he kind of plunges headfirst into this whole underground community of what they call pickup artists, or MDLS, which stands for Masters of the Domain Language and Seduction.
Exactly. And leading this whole pack is a guy named Mystery. And this guy, he was a real showman, real knack for turning heads.
Oh, I bet.
Picture this, right? Informal suits, black nail polish, a metal lip piercing.
Okay.
And this aura that just screams rock star, maybe even a little vampire-esque.
All right, that's definitely a look. But did he actually have the goods to back it up?
Oh, he did. Mystery, he was all about this structured approach. He called it the EAC method, which is find, approach, attract, and close. So it's like this step-by-step formula for seduction, almost like baking a cake, right? Except the ingredients are psychology and social dynamics.
I like that. But, reading the book, I gotta say, some of these tactics that they talk about, they seem, well, a little manipulative, like nigging, for example.
Oh, yes, negging, the art of the backhanded compliment.
Right.
It's about giving this subtle put down, but disguised as a compliment. You try to throw a woman off balance.
Yeah.
Make her crave your approval.
I mean, it does sound kind of cruel, if I'm honest.
It's definitely controversial. It raises questions about, authenticity and building those connections.
Yeah, it reminds me of, that movie Cruel Intentions with Ryan Phillip Wright, and manipulating Reese Witherspoon's character.
Yeah.
Just with this mix of charm and subtle digs.
Yeah, that's a great example. That's exactly how negging can play out. It's about creating this push-pull dynamic. Keep someone guessing, spark their interest.
Fascinating. What about this whole group theory thing? Strauss talks about how Mystery would recommend, ignoring the woman you're actually interested in.
Yeah.
And instead focusing on her friends. I mean, doesn't that seem completely counterintuitive?
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the idea is to create this sense of intrigue. So instead of showering the target woman with attention, you focus on building rapport with her friends, especially any men in the group.
Oh, I see.
That way she starts wondering, well, why isn't he vying for my attention like everyone else?
So it's all about playing hard to get.
In a way, yeah. You're tapping into our natural curiosity, our desire for what seems unattainable.
Right.
Think about those classic romantic comedies, right? The lead character finally gets noticed when they stop chasing after their crush and start focusing on themselves.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. That could definitely create this air of mystery.
Exactly. It's about shifting the power dynamic, you see. You become the prize, not the pursuer.
That's clever.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of creating an impression, Strauss mentions this hilarious list of items. That Mystery would recommend carrying for seduction.
Oh, yeah.
Things like fake piercings to give as gifts, lint to plant on a woman's clothing as an icebreaker, and a digital camera for stage photos.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds a bit absurd, right?
It does. But it just shows you the lengths that these guys would go to create this, this calculated illusion of connection.
It's like they're playing characters in a movie or something.
It is. It's like they're crafting these elaborate scenes, trying to evoke specific emotions.
It's almost like that movie, The Truman Show.
Oh, yeah.
Where Jim Carrey's character, his whole life is this staged reality show, and he has no idea.
Right, it makes you think about how we present ourselves, right? The stories we create to make an impression.
It really does.
Yeah.
And then there's this technique, they call it cold reading, which sounds like it's straight out of a magician's playbook.
Cold reading. It's about making these general observations about a person's personality. That could apply to almost anyone, really.
Oh, okay.
But it creates this sense of awe, this connection. It's like you have this special insight into their soul.
Right, it's like in Sherlock, right? With Benedict Cumberbatch, he can just deduce all these details about a person.
Yeah.
Just by looking at them,
Exactly. It's about using those subtle cues, those psychological tricks, create an illusion of deep understanding.
Okay, so we've got negging, we've got group theory, cold reading. It's like a whole arsenal of psychological tools here.
Oh, and let's not forget about anchoring. This technique was made popular by another guy, Ross Jeffries, and it involves associating a physical touch with a desired emotion.
Okay.
The idea is to create a link between physical closeness and feelings of attraction.
So it's like a Pavlovian response, right?
Yeah.
Where a simple touch triggers all these positive emotions.
That's the idea, tapping into the power of subconscious association.
Wow.
Now, all of these techniques, of course, they raise questions, right? About ethics and consent.
For sure.
You always have to remember, respect and genuine connection, that should be the foundation of any interaction.
Absolutely. So we're starting to see that this world of seduction, it's a lot more complex than it might seem.
It really is.
There's psychology, there's strategy, even a bit of showmanship involved.
It's this fascinating blend of art and science, with its own set of rules, its own controversies.
For sure. And it seems like Strauss himself eventually discovered that this whole path to seduction can come with a pretty hefty price tag.
That's right.
He talks about experiencing these periods of obsession, neglecting other aspects of his life, even battling depression.
Yeah, the pursuit of mastering the game, it can become all-consuming and lead to a real dangerous imbalance in your life.
Yeah, it reminds me of that saying, be careful what you wish for, you might just get it.
Right, because even if these techniques achieve that desired outcome, they might not lead to genuine happiness or fulfillment.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder that real self-worth, it needs to come from within, not from these fleeting external sources like romantic conquests.
Right. It's not all about how many women you can attract.
No.
It's about how you feel about yourself.
Exactly.
Regardless of that validation.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're seeing Strauss kind of witnessing this dark underbelly of the game firsthand. What happens next? I mean, does he just keep going down this path?
Well, we'll have to find out in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, sounds good.
Stay tuned.
So last time we left off with Neil Strauss kind of becoming style like a top player in this whole pickup artist community. Talk about a transformation.
It is remarkable, isn't it? And, as you might imagine, achieving that level of mastery came with its own unique set of challenges. Strauss talks about this pressure to constantly perform, to live up to that style persona, even when he didn't really feel like it.
It's like he almost had to become this caricature of himself, this smooth-talking, irresistible figure, even if it felt, inauthentic at times.
Exactly. And it reminds me of something we often see in films, like Nightcrawler, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal's character. He transforms himself into this ruthless, almost inhuman persona to succeed in that world of crime journalism.
You see the connection. It's like he adopts this calculated facade, but it comes at the expense of his genuine self. And his morals, really.
Precisely. And in a similar way, Strauss, he begins to question, the meaning, the sustainability of this whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's attracting women, sure. But at what cost? Is he truly happy? Is this really him?
Those are the big questions, aren't they? And it gets even more complicated, I think, when he starts to worry that he's creating these clones of himself in his students rather than actually helping them find their own unique paths.
That's a powerful insight. And it does raise some serious ethical concerns. Is it right to manipulate women's emotions for personal gain? What are the long-term consequences of this approach to relationships?
I mean, these are big questions. And then there's the whole issue of Mystery's mental breakdown.
Yeah.
There's a pretty dark turn in the story that really highlights, I think, the potential downsides of this lifestyle.
It's a stark reminder that dependence on external validation, even when it comes to, romantic success, can be incredibly fragile and ultimately lead to a spiral of instability and unhappiness.
Yeah, it really underscores the point that genuine self-worth needs to come from within, not from these fleeting external sources like romantic conquest.
Absolutely, true confidence. It isn't about how many women you can attract. It's about how you feel about yourself, regardless of that external validation.
Right. Okay, so we see Strauss witnessing this, this dark underbelly of the game firsthand. What happens next? Does he just keep going down this path?
Well, his style. He goes on to teach these workshops all over the world. He even travels to places like Belgrade and Moldova with Mystery.
Wow.
Which leads to some pretty wild, even dangerous experiences.
Yeah, there's that one scene in the book where they find themselves caught in the middle of a military standoff in a disputed territory.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about taking things to the extreme.
It's almost surreal, isn't it? But it shows just how far Strauss was willing to go, in his pursuit of mastering seduction, putting himself in risky situations, both physically and emotionally.
Like he was living in an action movie, except the stakes were real.
Right, and as the story unfolds, you see, the lines between reality and performance, they start to blur. Strauss starts to lose himself in the style persona.
It's like that saying, fake it till you make it, but taken to a dangerous extreme.
Exactly, he was so focused on projecting this image of confidence and mastery that he lost touch with his own genuine self.
It's fascinating how that pressure to maintain a certain persona can be so seductive and ultimately so destructive.
It is.
So what was the turning point for Strauss? How did he break free from this cycle?
Well, it was a gradual process, but a few key things happened. He started dating a woman named Lisa, who really challenged his worldview and made him question his reliance on manipulation.
Lisa sounds like a really strong, independent character. I mean, she wasn't impressed by his pickup artist tactics at all.
Not at all. She saw right through them, and her unwillingness to play by his rules really forced him to confront his own insecurities and motivations.
So she was kind of a catalyst for a lot of his personal growth.
I think so. He started to realize that true connection comes from vulnerability and authenticity, not from playing games or using these calculated techniques.
Right. Now, what about his relationship with Mystery? Did they ever fully reconcile?
Their relationship remained complex even after his breakdown. Mystery continued to believe in the power of the game, while Strauss was clearly moving in a different direction.
So it's like they represented two sides of the same coin, both seeking connection and validation.
Yeah.
But through vastly different approaches.
Exactly. And as Strauss continues to evolve, he gradually abandons that style persona and starts focusing on building a more authentic life.
Okay.
Embracing this lifestyle design philosophy that we talked about earlier.
So he finally realized that attracting women wasn't about tricks or techniques, but about becoming a genuinely interesting and well-rounded person.
That's right. He shifts his focus from chasing that external validation to cultivating internal fulfillment, pursuing his passions like writing and music, and focusing on building meaningful relationships based on honesty and authenticity.
It's like he finally understood that. True confidence comes from living a life aligned with your values, passions, not from mastering some game designed to manipulate others.
That's a powerful realization, and it leads us to the final chapter of Strauss's journey, where we'll explore the aftermath of his time in the pickup artist world, the impact the game had on society, and what we can all learn from his experiences.
All right, I'm eager to hear more. This has been incredibly insightful so far.
Let's take a moment, gather our thoughts, and we'll be right back to explore that final chapter of the game.
All right, we're back.
Ready to wrap up our exploration of the game?
Absolutely. It's been quite a journey.
It has, hasn't it? From awkward journalist to seduction guru to disillusioned style, and finally to a place of, greater self-awareness and authenticity.
Yeah, it's almost like a classic coming-of-age story, except instead of summer camp or high school, it takes place in the world of pickup artistry.
I like that analogy. Just like those coming-of-age stories, you see Strauss go through these periods of rebellion, exploration, and ultimately, a kind of personal transformation. Think about films like The Graduate or Catcher in the Rye. Those characters, like Strauss, they shed their old identities and embrace a more authentic way of being.
So he didn't just walk away from the pickup artist world and pretend it never happened.
Not exactly, no. He continued to write and speak about his experiences, but from a more critical and introspective perspective.
Okay.
He even co-wrote a book with Mystery called Rules of the Game, which offered a more comprehensive and somewhat refined approach to seduction.
But it sounds like, at that point, Strauss wasn't really drinking the Kool-Aid anymore.
Yeah, he'd moved on to a different phase in his life, one focused on genuine connection and personal fulfillment.
So he was kind of like exposing the flaws and pitfalls of the pickup artist world, but also acknowledging its allure and the underlying human desire for connection that fuels it.
Right, it's like he was offering a cautionary tale, but also a path to redemption.
Interesting. So what kind of impact did the game the book itself have on society? Did it change the dating landscape?
Well, it definitely became a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
It sparked a lot of debate
Yeah.
about dating dynamics, gender roles, and the ethics of manipulation in relationships. Some people saw it as,
Yeah.
a harmless guide to improving social skills, while others criticized it for promoting misogyny and objectification.
It sounds like it really tapped into some sensitive cultural nerves.
It did. And it's important to acknowledge that, some people might have used these techniques in harmful ways.
Sure.
But Strauss himself, he repeatedly emphasized that the ultimate goal was to build genuine connections, not to treat women like conquests.
So it's like any tool or skill, really. It can be used for good or bad, depending on the intentions of the person wielding it.
That's a good point. And while the book itself
Right.
might not have explicitly endorsed, harmful behavior, it's understandable why it generated controversy and sparked such strong reactions.
Absolutely. So what can we ultimately learn from Strauss's journey? What are the key takeaways here, even for those of us who aren't, aspiring pickup artists?
Well, I think there are several valuable lessons here.
Yeah.
First, I think it highlights the importance of self-awareness, understanding our own motivations, our desires. It's crucial for building healthy relationships.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in games and manipulation, but ultimately, authenticity is key.
It's like that quote, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken."
Exactly. And second, it reminds us that genuine connection it comes from vulnerability and shared experiences, not from playing a role or using these calculated techniques.
So ditch the playbook and just be real.
In a nutshell, yes. And finally, I think it underscores the point that lasting fulfillment, it comes from living a life aligned with our values and passions.
Okay.
When we're pursuing our own goals and interests, we naturally become more attractive, more magnetic, not because we're trying to manipulate anyone, but because we're radiating genuine confidence and passion.
It's like that saying, the best way to find love is to be the love you want to find.
Yes, when we focus on
Great.
becoming the best versions of ourselves, the right people will naturally gravitate towards us.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive that's really made me think about dating and relationships in a whole new light.
It certainly challenged some of our assumptions about attraction and connection.
Absolutely. And it's reminded us that while techniques and strategies can be, helpful, the most important thing is to be true to ourselves.
Yeah.
And to seek genuine connection with others.
Beautifully said.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the game. It's been quite a journey.
Until next time, keep diving.